Hello, it's April from April's Home, and today I thought I would share with you a recipe for one of my favorite appetizers and one of my family's favorite appetizers, bell pepper pinwheels. So what you will need are a couple loaves of classic sliced white bread here, like Wonder Bread or some other similar bread. You'll need some spreadable margarine. You'll need some whipped cream cheese. If you don't have whipped cream cheese, you can also soften up regular cream cheese by letting it soften at room temperature for a little while and adding a little bit of milk and then whipping that up with a mixer. But for a quick and easy recipe, this whipped works really well. You will also need bell peppers in 2 different colors. Since today is Halloween, I'm making these for Halloween, or if I make these for Thanksgiving, I use orange and green. In the spring, I use yellow and green, and for Christmas, of course, I use red and green. Again, these are favorite appetizers, and I make these for a lot of different holidays. You will also need wax paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is wash up these bell peppers and get them cut into long little strips. I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so my bell peppers are all prepped. You can see they're just in nice thin little slices like this. And I will set these aside and we'll use these when we assemble the rolls. Next, we need to prepare the bread and get it ready to roll up. So you'll start with 3 slices of bread here, and we're going to use a bread knife to trim off the crusts as close as we can to the end here. So I'm going to cut off all 4 sides of the crust here, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so you're left with 3 slices of bread here. If you stack them on top of each other, they'll be uniform size, and we've removed all the crusts. Of course, you can save these crusts to make croutons or breadcrumbs, or you can feed them to birds or whatever you want to do with them. I always set them aside and feed them to the birds in my backyard. They really love them. So now I'm going to remove these crusts here, and I'm going to lay the bread out in a row here, and then I'm going to slightly overlap them. The idea here is that we're making one long piece of bread, and now we're going to push the bread down at the seams here, and this helps to make one long piece. And then we're going to flatten the whole thing here. This is why it's important to use just classic white bread. It is what will press down like this. You know, sturdier breads won't quite do this as well. Some breads will. But this is the recipe for this one here. So you just flatten it out until it's nice and flat. You can also use a rolling pin if you want to get it nice and flat. So there we go. And again, make sure those seams are nice and pressed together there. And then I'm going to take my butter here and add a very, very thin layer of margarine to the entire surface of this bread here. You don't want so much margarine that you can actually taste it. The idea is that it is a very, very thin layer. This is a tip in making sandwiches with moist fillings. If you add a very thin layer of margarine, it will help the bread to not get soggy. So I'm going to spread a very thin layer of margarine all over this, and I'll be back to show you what that looks like. So I've spread a very thin layer of margarine all over the surface here, and as I spread, I kind of pressed the bread down a little bit more too, and really use that knife to scrape off any excess. The idea again is to just cover the surface to protect the bread from moisture and not to make it taste too margarine-y. Okay, and next I'm going to take my whipped cream cheese and spread a nice layer of whipped cream cheese over the surface of this bread. So you can see here I've spread a layer of whipped cream cheese all over the surface of this bread from end to end, and now I'm going to lay down my bell pepper pieces here just like so. We're going to kind of get this one towards the end here. This will be our center, and here we have the little green ones here. And if they're long like this, you can just take another one and cut it there just like so. I'm going to do that now real quick. Kind of add onto the end there. That way if you have short bell peppers, it's not a problem. And just kind of go back and forth, orange, green, orange, green. And here's another green one here, and I'll probably add a little piece here to the end of this one as well, just so they're nice and full of bell pepper. And then I'm going to start rolling from this end, holding it tightly, kind of pressing it into itself as I roll it here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the camera down and roll this up. And again, as you're rolling it, keep that bread pressed together, pressing down into the bell peppers as you roll this up. So I'll be right back to show you what this looks like all rolled up. Okay, so here it is all rolled up just like so, and you can press on those seams. You'll see there's a seam there and a seam here, and you can just kind of press those down. Here it is on the end. You can see some of those bell peppers sticking through. So this is rolled up a lot like a sushi roll or something like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of this wax paper and roll this up in wax paper nice and tightly, and we'll refrigerate this. Here I have it all wrapped up in wax paper. I've kind of pressed it together again so that it will adhere to each other and be a nice tight roll, and twisted the ends here so it looks like a little packet just like that. And I will pop this into the refrigerator, and I will get to work making a bunch more of these rolls. And I like to refrigerate these as long as possible. You can make these overnight, like if you want to make them in the evening and serve them earlier in the day. And today I'm making these around noon to serve around 6 tonight. So that way the cream cheese has a chance to kind of harden up and be nice and cold, and for the bread to kind of take on this round shape, and it will make it very easy to slice. And that's what we'll be doing when we take these out. We will be slicing these into little round sandwiches, and of course I will show you that when I take these out of the fridge and get these all sliced up to serve. Okay, so I've finished making all of my sandwich rolls here. You can see they're all bundled up. I've made quite a few, so I'll have enough for everybody tonight. And again, I'm going to put these all in the fridge to chill for a few hours at least, and of course overnight is also okay. I ended up using 2.5 loaves of bread and 2.5 containers of the cream cheese and all 4 of the bell peppers that I sliced up. So this is how many you would have if you use that many. Of course, you could make less. You could just use 1 loaf worth, or you can make more depending on how many people you have to serve. Each one of these rolls makes between 4 and 5 little slices, perhaps more depending on how thinly they're sliced. And again, I'll let you see what that looks like after these have chilled and I slice them all up. I'm also preparing my mulled apple cider, so I thought that I would share quickly how I do that. First, I start with my apples. I get 2 pretty solid apples here, and I use a peeler to just peel away the center there, and I stud it with whole cloves, just like so. These are the little whole cloves that I use, just like that, all the way around the apple. And then I get out 2 cinnamon sticks. Then in a crock pot, I've added 1 whole gallon of apple cider. And then I'm just going to take my apples and kind of float them in the apple cider here, just like so. You can see how pretty that looks. I'm going to drop in my cinnamon sticks, and they will help flavor this apple cider really, really nicely. So it's a nice crock-pot mulled apple cider. Also, a little bit later after this gets going, I'm going to add a couple slices of oranges. So I will come back and show you that when I add the oranges. I have this crock-pot on high. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on here. So I'm going to let this cook away on high for a few hours until it's nice and warm. I also have an additional jug here, another gallon of apple cider that I will continue to add to this if it all cooks down, or if I want a little bit more in here. And also, as people drink it down, I just like to add a little bit more. We like to keep this going all night on Halloween. I also make this for any of my fall parties that I have. Everybody loves it. I make sure to set out a bunch of mugs. I make sure and set out whipped cream and caramel syrup to drizzle over the top of this. So that is our very, very simple way to make our crock-pot mulled apple cider. I would definitely suggest it. It's really yummy, and it always turns out great. The mulled apple cider is all nice and warm, so now I'm going to go ahead and float a couple of orange pieces in here to give it a little bit of citrus. So we'll go ahead and let that warm up just a little bit longer, and it'll be ready to go. Okay, so here is the bell pepper pinwheels. You can see all out of the fridge. They are nice and chilled, so they're firm and ready to cut. And I just like to cut off the ends here. And the ends, I just set aside the ends and save those just for nibbling on for lunches or whatever. I don't serve those. And then I will go ahead and cut this into 5 equal rounds and then put that on a tray to serve, and I will go ahead and show you what that looks like. So here is that roll all cut up, and this one made 6 pieces. These are the bell pepper pinwheels, all sliced and ready to serve here. You can see that I've separated each layer with a little piece of wax paper. This is only about 1/3 of the ones that I made. I like to keep them in the fridge so they stay nice and fresh. This is the amount that I'll put out at first, and then I'll refresh it as they get eaten. You can see that I've sliced them really thin, just like this, from the rolls, and each roll made about 5 to 6 each. So this is what the bell pepper pinwheels look like. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this recipe. Okay, so it is Halloween evening and all my guests have left. I didn't get an opportunity before my guests arrived to share with you how we fix up our mulled cider. So of course you saw how I made it, and then I make sure to set a ladle out along with some mugs and also to-go cups. I make sure to buy the kind that are like to-go coffee mugs. And then I have out whipped cream and caramel syrup. So here I filled one of my mugs with some apple cider. And I've topped that with a little bit of whipped cream. And now I'm drizzling it with a little bit of caramel syrup. And that is how I serve our mulled cider every year. It's always a hit. Everybody loves it. It is so nice to come in from trick-or-treating when you're cold and enjoy a nice hot cup of mulled apple cider. We will probably be making another crock pot of this for another upcoming holiday, either Christmas or Thanksgiving. This is definitely a family favorite and a yearly tradition. So now that my guests have left, I think I'm going to enjoy a cupcake and some cider before I head to bed. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at my recipe for bell pepper pinwheels, as well as my recipe for mulled apple cider. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more videos from April's Home. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.